Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Di. Today we're going to be doing a project which is sewing, and I'm going to be making a large tote bag. So join me as I make this tote bag. So here are the pieces that we're going to need. First of all, we'll need some sharp scissors. I'm using a little bit of hardware today on this. This is a magnetic clasp. So you can see it's got the two sides of it. They go together and it's got prongs in the back of it, and I'll poke that through the fabric, and then I put these washers on it and fold them over. Now you don't need to have that. If you want something to close your tote bag, you can just put a little bit of cord and a button. So cord on one side, the button on the other. When you put them together, you just put the cord. You can even use elastic, little piece of elastic to go around the button, and that will close it. You don't need to have a closure at all. So you can just leave it as an open tote bag. So I've got two pieces of fabric here. I have my outer fabric and my liner. Now, these are both a heavyweight upholstery type fabric. This one is canvas, and this one, it's feeling like it's canvas, so I'm not quite sure, but it is very heavyweight. So because I'm using two heavyweight fabrics, I won't be putting a lining in this, as in a fusible lining. So either fusible fleece or a stiffener. I don't think that it needs it with such heavy duty fabric there. The other thing I'm going to be using is my rotary cutter and my ruler, which will guide me along as I do that. You don't need to have a rotary cutter. Scissors will do the job as long as they're a good sharp pair of scissors. Okay, so let's get on with cutting out our pattern pieces. Now I would advise, just if you want to make this bag, grab a pen and paper and write down the measurements. I haven't got a pattern for this, as in like normally people say, I'll go to my website and buy the pattern. No, I don't have a pattern for this, but you can easily make it. Now, you don't have to make a pattern like I have. You can just draw your measurements directly onto your fabric if you're just making one, and cut it out from there. But because I'm making multiples, I make a pattern, and it makes it easy for me every time I come back to make it again. So let's get cutting. Oh, one other thing I forgot that we need. This is a piece of core flute. Now, core flute is like a heavyweight plastic that you can see it's sandwiched in there. It's got like a corrugation in the middle. Now, what I use this for is my baseboard. This tote bag I make so that it is totally washable. So I make a cover for this. It goes in and makes a firm base on this bag. And then if anything spills, this cover comes off. Put the core flute aside, you can wash the bag and the cover and then just reassemble it. Okay, here I have my pattern pieces all pinned to my fabric. Now, the fabric that I'm using is 150 centimeters wide or 60 inches wide, and I'll be using 75 centimeters of fabric, or in inches, that's 30 inches. So if you're using narrower fabric, if it's not 150 centimeters wide, you'll need to adjust the amount of fabric. So 150 centimeters is usually the upholstery fabric that I buy. So yeah, that's what I'm using. So let's get cutting. Now, I'll just go through what I've pinned here. First of all, I've got the outer of my bag, because this is an outer fabric, and I've doubled this fabric over so the fold is over on this side here. Sorry, you can't see. The fold is over on this side of the fabric. Now, this piece here is the baseboard, but as you can see, it just fits the core flute inside. So for that baseboard, I'm doubling it and I'm cutting it on the fold so that I only need to hem these edges. This is not something that's going to be seen, so we don't need to have a seam on the other side if we cut it on the fold. we are cutting out little squares from our fabric, and that will create the fold that's needed so that we have a base in the bag. This part here is the straps, and again the fabric's doubled over, so there's 2 straps that'll be cut, and this is the pocket. So this is the pocket that I'm going to put on the inside, and this is the lining, and I'll use this fabric to make pockets on the outside. So let's get cutting. Oh, I will go through the dimensions. Get your pen and paper ready. So the dimensions that I'm using, this is a large tote bag. If you want something smaller, you can alter these measurements to suit what you want to make. Across the top, and this is for the liner and for the outer, it's 58 centimeters wide or 23 centimeters. Now, if you go and do calculations on the measurements I'm giving you, you'll find that it's not exactly right. I've rounded the measurements up so that it's just easier on the tape measure for me. Instead of me saying 57 point so many millimeters, I've just rounded it to 58. So anyway, here's the measurement. So it's 23 inches across the top or 58 centimeters. Down the side, it is, I didn't put that measurement on. Let me have a look. It is 15 inches, this side, 15 inches or 38 centimeters. The little cutout is a 3-inch square. So down the bottom, it's 17 inches or 43 centimeters. For our baseboard, that is 4 3/4 inches or 12 centimeters by 18 inches or 46 centimeters. And you cut your baseboard just a little bit smaller than that. What have I measured my baseboard? My baseboard is 44 centimeters by 12 centimeters or 17.5 by 4 3/4. Actually, that's wrong. That should be 14 centimeters, sorry. Across the top there, that should be 14 centimeters. Now, the next pieces that we've got our handles. This is 28 inches by 3 inches or 66 centimeters by 8 centimeters. We need 2 of those. And our pocket is 6 inches. We're going to be folding this over, so it's going to make a 6-inch square, so it's 12 inches along there. And that's 15 centimeters by 30 centimeters. Okay, now we'll get cutting. Now just make sure that I've got my cutting mat underneath. And there we have it, all our cut pieces are cut. Now the next thing, I'll be cutting the lining. Now with my lining fabric, this is only 120 centimetres wide and I need 66 centimetres. And I'll go through that in a moment, but that is 66 centimetres. So we need 26 inches and it is about 48 inches wide, the fabric. So we need less fabric because the handles are being cut from the main fabric. The baseboard cover is cut from the main fabric. So all we're cutting from this is a liner and some pockets. That's it. So there's less pieces to cut in this instance. And we'll come back once I've cut that. Okay, so I've cut out my lining. And now the next thing I'm going to do is take it to the machine and sew it up. So what I'm going to do is to sew along both sides and not this, sew along both sides, not this edge here or this edge here, we don't sew those, and I'm sewing along the bottom, but I'm going to leave a gap because I need to be able to turn this inside out. So I'm going to just put a pin there, and that's about a 6-inch gap so that I can turn this the right way. I'm also going to do the same with my outer fabric, except along the bottom edge I'm going to sew the whole thing. So I'll be turning this around so that the right sides are together, and I'll be sewing it on the wrong side. Again, sewing the bottom and the sides, not the cutout pieces. So let's come back when that's done. Okay, so I have sewn my bag, the outer, with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, the bottom section that I said not to sew, I'm just going to show you what we do with that. We just pull that out, we line up the side seam, with the base seam, just like that, and we sew along that flat edge. So just doing that again, we've got our box section cut out here. We take that, pull it apart, line up the side seam and the bottom seam, and then we sew along both of those right across. And I have overlocked mine. You don't need to overlock it because it's going to be lined. You will not see it, but I like to think of the overlocking as giving it double strength. So I've done a normal seam and then I have overlocked it. So I'll do that, and I'll do that on both the bag and the liner, and then we'll come back. So here I am at the ironing board, and here are my straps. So first of all, I'm going to fold it in half and iron it in half. Now I've got a steam iron here, so the steam will press that quite well and make a nice crease right down the middle for me, which is what I'm after. So that's the first one, and now I'll do the second one. So if you can hear that noise in the background, that's my dog Zeus. He is having a drink, and his bowl is right beside me, beside the fridge there. I don't know if you can see that in the background. But he's my constant companion. He's always with me. And he's an excellent watchdog. Lets me know if anything is happening. Not that he barks all the time. He certainly doesn't bark. Not a lot anyway. There he is, he's drinking again. Okay, so there we have our piece in half. Now, of course, that can't be the strap because there's all raw edges there. So what we're going to do is to fold one part into the center, just the top part. Doesn't matter, you can do the top or the bottom. Then the bottom part. Oh, watch out for that steam, it burns. Okay. And then we fold our straps in half. Back down along that centre line that we did it initially. And now what we're going to do, we'll make sure that that's all lined up properly. We will sew our straps all the way down and then on both sides. We don't need to do both sides, but I like it to be stitched on both sides so it looks nice. So we'll finish this one off and then we'll get them positioned onto the bag. Okay, so I have sewn those both edges. You can see I've sewn along there. Now while I've got my iron out, I will get the pockets done. So these are the pocket pieces. There's 2 pockets each. So we just want right sides together. Now, what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to sew this all the way I'm going to sew it top and bottom. Then I'm going to turn it the other way and pin it to my bag. Then it's going to be sewn onto the bag across there. When I've turned it the right way, I have ironed in the seam allowance, so I'm going to stitch it across the top so that when I do sew it onto the bag, all I have to do is sew it across there and it's already, so it's a double piece, it's a double, just so that it's all neat inside, so that there's no edges. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm thinking that I'm probably going to put 2 rows of sewing just to be a little decorative across the top. But that's what I'm going to do with each piece of the pockets that I've got. So I've got 2 for the outside and 2 for the inside. And I'm just looking at that fabric to see which is the right side, so I can put the right sides together. Okay, so I have sewn that down both sides there. And now I'm going to just trim away the edge, the corner, so that I can turn it inside out. So just cutting those corners off there and then turning it inside out. And I've got my trusty little chopstick here to help me. Okay, now I need to sew that nice and iron that nice and flat, and on the other side. just trim some of that seam out the way because it is poking up. There, that's better. And we'll just trim this. There we go. And now I'll take it back to the machine and I'll give it 2 rows of sewing across the top. That'll be the top. That's not quite straight, so let me adjust that. That's better. Okay, now I'll do all pieces the same. Okay, so I've got the lining. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to turn that the right way around, and I'm going to mark that out for where I'm going to position my pockets. So I just use the iron for this. I just find it just so simple to do. So what I do, I want the pockets, first of all, I want to mark out. I'm just making sure that both edges are together. I just want to fold it in half, and I'll just press a seam down there. So give me my halfway mark. And how far, there is no formula to this, it's just how you prefer it to be on the bag. I'm looking at where is the bottom there, that's the bottom part. So I don't want it too close to the top, so I'd say here. Now I'm just going to measure how far down that is. So I'm going to put the top of the pocket, let's make it even, so that's 15 inches, yeah, that's a little bit low, let's make it 12. Now I've got to take into consideration that this is going to be sewn, there's going to be a seam along here which will actually lift up, so it'll make it about 11 centimetres from the top. The pocket will sit there. Might bring it a little bit further up. How about 10? Yep, 10 centimetres, 4 inches. I'm going to mark it out. So again, I'll just fold that over so we've got our halfway mark. And I said it was 10 centimetres. Let's just a fraction more, 10 centimetres, and I'll just mark that out. Right, now that we've got our marks on our fabric, you can see those quite well, I hope. There we go. I'm going to pin the pockets in place. So just make sure I've got the center of the pocket on the center, and there we have it. So I'll just pop some pins in there. I don't like these shifting around as I'm sewing, so you can see that where I've placed my pins, they're in from the edge. I can sew around here without removing the pins. So now I just need to put the pocket on the other side, so I'll do that, and then I'll do the outer the same way, and then I'll go and sew the pockets in place. Okay, so we have sewn our pockets on. That's the lining. This is the exterior. So if you've got a little label that you want to put on, I've positioned mine there. It says Miss Mary Designs. It's the name of my business. The website isn't up and running yet, but it will be soon. So here we have some scraps that I've cut from the lining, and the next job I'm going to do is to attach my clasp so that we can close the bag and keep it secure. Now, as I said earlier, you do not need to put a clasp on. And I'll just iron in some measurements. So I'm going to be placing the clasp. I'm just bringing you down a little bit so you can see better. I'm just going to place the clasp in the center, 1.5 inches down from the raw edge. So I'm just going to grab my pen and mark that. Just going to put a little bit of mark there. And a little bit of a mark on this side. So that's 1.5 inches, which is 4 centimeters. Just about, sorry, yeah, 4 centimeters. So what we need to do with our clasp, is to poke it through, and I'm using some of my scrap material so that it goes through that as well, just so that it gives something to bite onto, so that it's not putting too much strain or wear and tear on the little holes that those little prongs will make. Those little prongs, don't know if you can see that. There's little prongs on there. So they'll make little holes in the bag. So we'll just push that through. So I'm just snipping the fabric to give it a little opening so that that can go through. Now I'll need to do the same with my backing fabric. So that's all done there. So I'll just put the backing fabric on. Then I'll take my washer, put that over it, and then fold those two little lugs out to secure it. So there it's secured, and you can see how it is at the back. Now I'll just give you a close-up of that. So you can see the backing fabric there, and you can see how that's secured and it's nice and tight. So I'll do the same on the other side. And there we have both sides done. So that side's done and that side's done. Okay, so now we're going to attach our handles, and I've just measured it and I've ironed it. So I've marked out, first of all I put it in half, then I put it in quarters, and I measured those quarter marks and just hit it with the iron so that they're there. Now when we take our straps, we need to make sure two things. First of all, that we don't twist them when we put them on, but we put them on the same way. So what I mean by the same way is there's an edge which is the folded edge and an edge where the two edges have come together and they've been sewn. So I always make sure that on the outside is the folded edge. So we're just putting this on like this. Turn it over, and we do the same on this side. Again, making sure that that folded edge is outside on the outer edge. Make sure that your strap is not twisted and that the folded side is on the outer edge, and then pin this one in place. Okay, so then we just take it and just make sure that they are lined up perfectly, and this one's not. This one was over a little bit, so let's just adjust that. This one can go over that way fraction. And that's perfect. Yep, I'll just go and sew those on. Now I've sewn those on, and I'll just show you the back seam so you can see it. I have gone backwards and forwards 4 times, so to make sure that there's a lot of strength in that sewing. So we'll just take those pins out, and then we're up to our second last step, or our third last step. So our next step is putting the lining in and sewing it together. Then we do a top stitch around the top, and then I need to close up the gap in the bottom of the liner. So what we need to do, turn this one inside out, we need to put them right sides together. So when I do this, we need to make sure that the handles are inside and out of the way of our sewing. Just the edges of them will be here, and they'll be sewn again as we sew the lining. And the lining goes in, so it's right sides together. And now what I need to do is to sew the two of them together all the way around. And when I do that, I'll also do an overlocking stitch or serger. And the reason for that is that this fabric here frays a lot. I know it's inside, nobody's going to see it, but I don't want it fraying and ruining, weakening the bag. So I'll do those 2 lots of sewing around there, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I've sewn all around the top edge, and I've used the overlocker on it as well. And when I came to the bits with the handles, I went backwards and forwards again a second time. So now we're just going to turn it the right way. So we have a hole in the middle here of the lining, that 6-inch gap that I left. Now many of you may have been thinking, actually before I do that, I am just going to go and iron that so that there's a nice seam for me. I'm going to iron that seam open so that it makes it easy for me to hand sew it. So I'll come back when I've just ironed that so that when I turn it, it makes it easy for me to make a nice join. Right, so it's inside out with this bag. Let's have a look at how we're going here. Now, some people might have thought 6 inches, that's a big gap to leave, but there's a lot of bag to bring through. Now, as I said, I'm not lining this bag with any fusible stiffener or any fusible fleece, but if you have that in the mix as well, you might want to leave a little bit bigger than the 6 inches because there's more bulk to bring through. Okay, so now I have it the right way. Let's put the lining inside the bag. Okay, now we have our lining inside our bag. I'm going to bring you over to my ironing board. Okay, here we are at the ironing board, and what I'm doing here, so I told you that fabric frays, look at the little fray bits. I need my clippers. That's why I overlocked it, because it did fray quite easily. Right, so now I'm just going to pop it over the edge of my ironing board so that I can pull that seam out and iron that nice and neatly. I don't want any of that lining showing. I want a nice crisp edge there. Okay. Because I'm going to be putting a running stitch all the way along, a top stitch along there. So that's the purpose of doing this, to make it nice and neat, sit flat so that I can, and it's all lined up when I've ironed it as well. So just iron all this. And that's another reason why when we did the clasps, when we put these in, we didn't put them too high because we need to be able to sew around the edge. So I'll do that and then we'll have a look at the next step. There we go, that's perfect. Perfect fit. Now, of course we don't want that core flute just sitting in the bottom. We want to cover it so that when you look in the bag it's nice and it protects it. But I want this bag to be fully washable so that you get any spills, I don't know, anything happens to it, it can go straight in the washing machine. So we're going to make this cover, and I'm just checking the sizes, that's fine. We're going to be sewing this cover. Now, remember we cut this on the fold, so I'll just open this up and show you. we cut this on the fold so it does open up. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to put a hem on there, hem that down, and then I'm going to get 2 pieces of Velcro and put them across there. Then I'm going to sew all the way around. So once that's done, I'll come back. Sorry, lost some footage there. So I have put the core flute into its cover and I closed it off with the Velcro, but we can just open that Velcro if this gets dirty and needs to be washed, and pull that out, wash it, and then pop it back in. Now, you don't need to put the base in, you don't have to, but I like to do it just to protect the bottom of the bag. And I also put that Velcro there because I like to make sure that everything is fully washable. So if you didn't, and you don't have to put the clasps on. Now, if you don't put clasps on and you just leave it open like that, the bag can actually be reversed. So you might want a plainer bag. And there it is, fully reversible. But with the clasp on, that makes it not reversible. And you might think, well, why would you want a bag to be reversible? Well, you might get a stain on it on the outside, and there's still a lot of life left in the bag. If you reverse it, then you can still use it and nobody gets to see the stain. But on one occasion, I made bags that were very Christmassy. And I was off to the supermarket and I went, oh, I forgot to bring my bags with me. I've got some in the car, I thought. I went, it was the middle of the year. I don't want to be using a Christmas bag. So it was red inside and had Christmas print on the outside. So I just reversed it and I just had a red bag. So there are other reasons why you might want to reverse it. But there you go. There's our bag. All done. All ready to go. Closed. And just some more things, some more points. You can omit the pockets. You can change the pockets. You might want them longer. You might want to put 2 on and then just sew a line in the middle so you've got 2 pockets, especially on the inside. The reason I make my pockets this deep is because I often use them to put my sunglasses in. Now I do put that on the inside, but I don't want the sunglasses falling out, so I just stick them in the pocket, and my car keys. And I know that with a deep pocket like that, my car keys will go to the bottom and they won't fall out in the bag, and then I've got to find them in amongst everything. So I'll use a bag like this when I go swimming. So I'll have all my swimming gear in there, and then I'll have my sunglasses and my car keys. So there's the bag. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining me today. Quite a long video. It's an easy process. It just takes a long time to explain it to you. So if I make this bag without having to stop, start video and all the rest of it, I can whip up one of these bags in about 40 minutes. That's with my pattern all ready to go, just cutting it out, sewing it up, 40 minutes, bag's finished. So there you go. Thanks once again for joining me. Don't forget, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and if you know somebody who would like to make a bag and see how easy it is, share the video with them. Maybe you're not a sewer, you've sat through this video and then you go, I know somebody who sews, I'll get them to make me that bag. Go buy the fabric, send them the video, ask them to do it. Put some chocolates or something on offer so that you sweeten the deal. Anyway, thanks once again. Bye for now.